Good afternoon, everyone, again. Thank you and welcome to ecoElPaso's 13th annual conference, Sustainability During a Pandemic. I appreciate everyone joining us or watching this on YouTube after the fact. But today we have another speaker that's a local El Pasoan who works with a local solar company, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the solar technologies that they're installing out here in this region, climate change, sustainable living, and a variety of different topics. And so today we have Alan Morgan from Solar Smart Living, LLC. Solar Smart Living is a local solar energy company. They are also the sponsor for this past 2 weeks for our speaker series. So thank you for your company and your ownership for investing in us. We appreciate that. But today we have Alan, and I will let Alan take it from here and share his screen and walk you through his story.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak with you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about a variety of different topics, ranging from climate change to the technologies that you can use to adopt a sustainable energy lifestyle. Solar Smart Living, so you guys know, is, our mission is to promote eco-friendly solutions that encourage a sustainable energy lifestyle. We've been in business since 2008. We're literally the longest running solar engineering company here in the El Paso and southern New Mexico area. We have a really good Better Business Bureau rating as well as on Google. We're registered, veteran-owned, and run small business. We have a high level of experience working with individuals, businesses, and government entities. Zero customer complaints, which is really, really good. And we have more board certified engineers than any other solar engineering company in the region. Now, let's talk a little bit about climate change. Is it real? A lot of people have different thoughts about this. This year, for the first time in a very, very long time, we've actually had named storms by character. So we're calling them by Alpha and Omega and Delta because we've kind of run out of names. There have been more severe wildfires in the last 10 years. And if you don't think air pollution for vehicles here is a problem, just try to stand on a corner of any busy street and breathe in the air. A good example that I've experienced recently is I was crossing the street on Mesa, not too far from I-10, and you could just smell the exhaust from people's cars. Now, temperatures are on the rise, as you can tell. Since 1950, global temperatures have risen 3/4 of a degree in Celsius, which, believe it or not, 1 degree change is considered to be a near extinction event. So not to, scare you with doom and gloom, but this occurs both naturally and by man-made means, such as burning fossil fuels and technological innovation, which ultimately causes us to use even more energy. Third world countries want to grow too, just as much as we do. Therefore, continued global growth is inevitable. Energy production and transportation are the biggest culprits and users of fossil fuels. This just means we consume more, thus we build more power plants and even burn more fossil fuels, since that is still the easiest and cheapest way to produce energy to keep up with the demand. Innovation alone, we cannot change things, but by each of us changing with innovation, we can have an impact. We have a great video about innovation and climate change on our Solar Smart Living blog if you guys want to go check that out and learn a little bit more. Now, here's an example of something that's kind of happening now. We've all heard about glaciers and polar ice melting. There's a glacier in Antarctica known as Pine Island. It's a lot bigger than Manhattan, and it's been steadily breaking up since 2000. Earlier this year, I did a talk about about climate change, and one of the things that came up was in February of 2020, temperatures in the Antarctic Peninsula spiked at a record 64.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is
Wow.
literally a heat wave in Antarctica. There are two major Antarctic glaciers that are tearing loose from their restraints. Pine Island is one of them, and the Thwaites Glacier is another. Both of them contribute to about 5% of the current sea level rise. So that kind of gives an example of the impact that temperature changes have been having.
Wow.
Now, how do we make a difference? We make a difference simply by deciding to do so. Let's take a look at our choices with regards to renewable and sustainable energy. We have gas-fired power plants, which a lot of us are familiar with. You know, here in El Paso, a lot of El Paso Electric's power comes from gas-fired power plants. Natural gas is clean and it's cheap. This is why utilities love it. But extraction and transportation of fossil fuels like natural gas is not. And who of us wants to live next to a gas plant right in our backyard? What a lot of people don't understand is the transportation part is the problem. So when we transport natural gas, one of the byproducts or one of the components of natural gas is methane. And methane is 34 times worse at impacting global temperatures than just natural gas. Now let's take a look at another one. Nuclear plants. Now, nuclear plants, is that power clean? Yeah, of course. But here's some interesting information. This is news from yesterday, right? Well, actually, it was 2 days ago, prior to the election. There is an effort in motion right now of a company that is looking to transport by rail spent nuclear fuel from every single one of the US-based nuclear power plants to a location just east of us here in El Paso and in southern New Mexico. So essentially what we're doing is we're inviting the ability of storing radioactive material right on our doorstep. Now, wind power looks good. I mean, a lot of people like wind energy, like wind turbines, but here's the downside to this common clean energy solution. First off, wind energy doesn't happen nearby. You have to have a large amount of land to produce clean energy. These fields are never located near residential areas, and that's because of, one, noise. There's a lot of noise pollution that is created by these wind turbines. And secondly, the cost of transmission is very high because they have to build these high volume, high capacity power lines from the wind turbine fields to the main trunks that supply energy to us. And that's very expensive, especially since the grid that we supply energy through is antiquated and is in dire need of an upgrade. That could cost in the neighborhood of trillions of dollars. In addition to that, turbine blades can last up to 20 years, but most of them are taken down after 10 years to be replaced with bigger and more powerful designs. Now, tens of thousands of these aging blades are coming down from steel towers around the world and being dumped into large landfills like this picture. They have to be cut into thirds and then are buried in these landfills. Now, with regard to solar, solar is the other one. Now, are there any bad reasons to go solar? No, actually there aren't. Solar, as I will show you here, is not only clean and sustainable renewable energy, it's efficient. It can be installed virtually anywhere. Panels can last up to 40 to 50 years before you think about even replacing them. And they can also be repurposed. So solar panels, when they get to about half capacity, which is usually about the 50-year mark, can be used to provide power in remote areas that don't have access to power, such as in third world countries that without this kind of power supplier wouldn't have any electricity whatsoever. Now, do you think they're concerned about the panels not producing 100% of what they started out at? No, they're more concerned about having lights and their pumps working. So we could still use those old solar panels as a way to supply power to these areas. Now here in the Southwest where we live, in El Paso, we have more energy produced by the sun than anything else. We actually live in an area that's in the top 2% of the nation for potential solar production. Did you know that if we all went solar in El Paso and southern New Mexico, including the utilities and private enterprises investing in more solar, we could power a majority of the United States just from our region. Now, El Paso is also in the desert. Now, why is that important? Well, what do you think the one resource that we don't have a lot of is? Water. Oops, let me go back. Got ahead of myself here. Water is El Paso's least abundant resource. The picture that you're looking at here in the lower left-hand corner of my screen is an aerial view of the Newman power plant and its allocated pond. Newman is just one of the many gas-fired power plants that we have out here. Now, even though natural gas power plants use less water than coal and nuclear power plants do, they still use the equivalent of half an Olympic-sized swimming pool to generate 1 megawatt hour of energy. Now, how much is that? A megawatt hour is the equivalent of powering 1,000 average-sized homes in the region per month. So if you could have solar, how's that going to affect that? Let me show you. Now, one house or small business in El Paso or southern New Mexico can conserve as many as 660,000 gallons of water over 25 years, which is the equivalent of about 1 Olympic-sized swimming pool. So remember, I was telling you that one of those power plants per month uses about half an Olympic-sized swimming pool to power 1,000 homes. Well, if one home can conserve as much water as an Olympic-sized swimming pool, imagine how many homes, how many gallons of water 1,000 homes at solar can produce. You probably wouldn't even need that power plant to.
Yeah, and we've got probably 15 or 20,000 in the El Paso electric region too. So yeah, we're doing our part.
Yeah, and I remember what it was like about 5 years ago, 6 years ago when I got here. We had maybe 2,000 homes with solar on them.
Yep.
We have a lot more than that today. So
yeah, it surprised me. I was happy to hear it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see that so many people are going solar. Now, a lot of people still don't have solar. In fact, as a percentage, even El Paso, of its entire portfolio of power generation, it only produces about 2% of its full capacity from renewable sources like solar. The rest comes from nuclear power, which represents about 40% of the power we have here, and its other investments. But on an individual and a business size level, there are no bad reasons for going solar and adapting a sustainable energy lifestyle. And I'll show you why. Now, if you're looking at this picture, you'll see a home on the left-hand side and a business on the right-hand side. Both have the capability of not only producing their own energy, but they have the potential of taking advantage of beneficial electrification. And what that is if you're producing energy on your roof and you're also consuming it efficiently, and that's through powering an electric car or using energy efficient appliances, all of those things, it literally becomes a win-win for everybody because there's very, very little waste. A sustainable energy future requires a multi-part solution, and it starts with solar, which generates clean energy we own. Then, with the use of a battery system, you can store excess solar energy to be consumed on demand and after the sun is set or is available during a grid power outage. In the future, this excess stored energy could be used to invigorate an electric grid whose resources have been overtaxed. by high demand, such as during those hot summer months when everybody is cranking up air conditioners. The same renewable energy can also be used to charge our electric vehicles and power high-efficiency electric appliances in our homes and businesses. Together, generation, storage, and sustainable transport and the adoption of high-efficiency electric appliances and lighting can drive the majority of the sustainable energy revolution. Now, here's an example of some of the product ecosystem out there for sustainable living and beneficial electrification. The latest home products empower you and effectively turn your home into a personal utility and an efficient consumer of the energy you produce. Today, you can buy electric ranges and appliances that use 40 to 60% less energy than they did a decade ago. Heating and cooling costs represent 50% or more of our energy usage here in the borderland. Air source heat pump heating and cooling systems, like mini splits, for instance, can greatly lessen that demand. These include HVAC, pool heaters, hot water heaters, and more for your home. Driving an electric vehicle powered by your solar energy could save you enough in fueling costs and maintenance to pay a good portion of your mortgage payment. Can your gas-powered vehicle do that? Probably not. Now, adopting a sustainable energy lifestyle is more than just going solar. We can make a positive impact by doing this. All you have to do is decide to make a difference. It's a conscious decision to produce and use that same clean energy more responsibly. That's it. Questions?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, that was a great presentation. So I actually have some questions specifically. I know that you guys do your standard solar panels, solar photovoltaics, PV as a lot of people call it.
Right.
And then I heard recently, or in recent years, you guys got into solar pool heating as well.
Correct.
And do you also do solar hot water heating? Is that something you guys are into quite yet?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I was mentioning, is that you can use, for instance, we're a dealer for Mitsubishi, so we can do the air source heat pump heating and cooling systems, which, as I mentioned, are about 40% less energy usage than a traditional HVAC system.
Yeah.
And then on the pool heating, it's kind of like a heat source heat pump as well. Okay. What it does is it takes heat out of the ambient air, the ambient temperature, and injects it into the pool. And some systems can actually cool the pool as well by removing heat from the swimming pool.
Sure.
And then you've got hot water heaters that work the same way. They take the hot air out of your garage and inject it into your water and heating your water for your home.
Nice. Yeah, my parents were always my guinea pigs for solar when I got in the industry about 15 years ago. And yeah, we did glycol 80-gallon tanks that have a coil with glycol. Mm-hmm. It's like a pink, radiator fluid basically, and it would just go up to the thermal panels that were probably twice as thick as a regular solar panel. Basically, it's a radiator with copper pipe and glass, right? And that's how they would heat their water. And then recently, I put on solar pool heating, which for me, coming from Austin and San Antonio, man, the water is cold here all year long. I don't care if it's 100 degrees out. I was surprised by that. And so it actually really, for the first time, my family swam in our pool all summer long, which is really, really nice. So yeah, it's nice to get both, the sort of the creature habits and comforts that we like, along with sustainability. It's
right.
Makes me feel less guilty.
A lot of people don't realize that out here, because of the temperature variance between what your pool is at and the outside air is so dramatically different that you lose a lot of heat. So that's why gas, pool heaters and electric pool heaters don't work as well, because the more heat you put into your pool, the more is going to escape. So if the temperature outside is cold and you're putting all this energy into your pool, you're just going to spend more money because it's all going to escape. So that's why.
And you got a bill at the end of the month, right? Yeah, so all that plus a bill, plus you're a polluter. Whereas me, I just bought it one time, put it on my roof one time, factor in very minor regular maintenance, and it's, never going to have a bill, which for me was big, right? I wanted the comfort that I was looking for without ever having to install gas lines into my house, which is why I bought this house. It's funny, when I bought my house, I had an emblem from '73. It was like the most electrically efficient home in El Paso, which is a kind of a joke now. But that's cool. And then you mentioned mini splits. So I think that's one thing a lot of people here in El Paso probably feel the pain in the summers, that half our bill can be AC unit, or if you're electric in the winter like me, you're heating, and definitely have big bills, or much bigger compared to spring and fall. So that's interesting. What types of mini split products are you selling?
Well, it's more than just mini splits, because mini splits are just one model of heat
Okay.
source heat pump.
Okay.
Mitsubishi, for instance, and other manufacturers out there actually have central air systems as
Oh,
well. So
nice.
it still works from the principle of taking ambient heat out of the air outside and heating your home with it, or taking the heat out of your house and getting it outside of your house, which cools your house. So it's using air as a way to heat and cool your home, and it's 40% less energy use than a traditional HVAC system is. And it's quieter, it's cleaner. I mean, it keeps your air quality high, and energy usage low. So you're using less power during the summertime than you would with a traditional HVAC system that requires a lot of amperage to kick those compressors on.
Sure.
And you have solar. Your whole goal of going solar in the first place is not only to produce clean energy for your home that helps save you money, but imagine if you can manage the power that you're using and consuming at the same time, so you're using even less. In that case, with the right kind of technologies, you can lower your costs even more and save even more money. And that's why we talk about things like the pool heaters and the heat pumps, battery storage and EV charging. I don't know if you heard, earlier I was talking about how just from charging the amount of money that you save in gas and fueling costs and maintenance by going to an electric car, that savings could almost pay your mortgage payment. It's
Yeah.
that much.
We've
So
got some board members that drive Teslas, and I have some personal friends here in town. And when you really put together the laundry list, you add up a lot of different fluids. Even I heard that the brakes, because of the way the brakes work, they last 2 to 3 times as long as a regular car. So now we're not even talking about fluids. We're just talking about the parts are better. You're really, the only thing I could compare was, windshield wipers and tires were about the same. Everything else seemed to just last longer. And I don't think people think about that when they buy a car or a house. They think about the price today, but they don't think about total cost of ownership, right? And I've been out to y'all's offices and seen how many electric vehicles you drive around in, and Chevy Bolts and different types. And so I think that's also what consumers like to see, is when the solar guy shows up in an EV, right? They're practicing what they preach. They have solar on their house, and they're doing the things that they're selling, right? So for me, that's kind of cool. You sort of practice what you preach, especially at your office and the big solar system, because you guys pretty much run off solar to run your main corporate office. Is that right?
right. So we have solar on the main office, plus we have an air source heat pump,
Nice.
geothermal system for heating and cooling. Um, the only thing we're missing right now is a battery,
Yep.
and that's going to be the next step. But like on my wife and my home, we've got solar, we've got energy storage, we have a power management system in place. Plus, we both have electric vehicles, and I notice the savings that we have.
Yeah, you
So
see it every day.
it does make a difference when you're a user as
Yep.
well. Um, and it doesn't make sense to be in this industry trying to make an impact with everybody out there, and not be able to do it yourself. And because the proof is in the pudding, like they say. And um, there's a lot of things that
Absolutely.
people can do, and that's one of the things that we love doing. Is that's kind of our mission, is to help make a difference, not just sell solar panels.
Sure. And you mentioned storage, which I think, you can put storage on any building in the country, and they're going to have an outage at least once or more a year. Every utility does. I don't care how perfect and awesome you are. And I know they try to keep us up, as much as they can. But talk to me about your storage system. What does it look like, seem like, integrate? Sort of talk to us about like how it works. I think people get solar, right? It creates energy, it pumps into your house or the grid, we save money. But I think storage used to be a really old idea. But I think with the concept of cell phones, laptops, and how batteries work these days, tell me sort of as take off your company hat, put on your homeowner hat. Tell me sort of what it's like to own that battery storage system.
I would have to say the coolest thing about it, outside of knowing that if the power ever goes out, my solar system is going to continue working indefinitely. Um, there is a coolness factor to when the power does go out, and if it's at nighttime, we're the only people on the block that still have the lights on. That has a really neat feeling to it. But more in practice, if there's any power outage, we never know it because it's so seamless that the clocks never have to be reset. We might have the lights flicker really quick, which kind of is a good indicator that we had a power
Battery
outage.
kicked in.
Because we've got that smart, Alexa technology, and for some reason it's too sensitive. So if the power goes out, the lights come on really bright. So that's how we know.
Nice.
But it's seamless. You don't know. And, it's just a neat feeling. I mean, it really is. It's a peace of mind that you cannot get without a battery.
Sure. Yeah, and I've actually installed a lot of battery backup systems on a lot of houses in West Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. A lot of off-gridders, right? I wanted to build a big cabin and live off-grid. And I've done everything from just big shelving units with these giant batteries. Well, one thing that impressed me is that I think you guys sell Sonnen, and they remind me a lot of the Tesla Powerwall when it comes to sort of the sleekness. It's all kind of one big box with a bunch of software and hardware that you don't need to know about. It looks pretty, it's quiet, it's sort of, out of sight, out of mind. Or if you're like me, you want to see it because you think it's a cool techie. I'm a geek and I want to see all that stuff. But it seems like you guys and Tesla sort of have a product that seems very for those that are maybe not into solar, right, need to be sold on it. It seems like something sort of plug and play.
Yeah, and everybody's different, obviously, as far as why they go solar or why they want to have battery. So
Sure.
we have different types that we use. We carry everything from Sonnen to LG Chem and
Nice.
Fortress Power's eVault system, and more
Great.
recently we're going to become a Tesla installer as well. So we'll be
Powerwall.
Tesla Powerwall.
Nice.
Which ironically, I have a Tesla Powerwall on my wall from
Cool.
when I used to work at Tesla. So,
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool.
People always ask, they say, well, wait a minute, you work for Solar Smart Living, how come you have a Tesla Powerwall? It's because it's the industry. It's like, it doesn't matter what company you're working for.
There. Okay.
The technology is the same. So,
but so I have a question about your battery. So your battery storage, right? Let's just say the sun doesn't come up for a week and we have an apocalypse and there's no sunlight for whatever reason. How long can you remain offline with the circuits that you chose to remain online? How long can you go without sunlight? Is that like a 1 day, a 2 day sort of autonomy?
Depends. It's just like the battery on your phone. It depends how many apps you have running.
Yeah.
That will determine how long your battery lasts. So you can manage we have power management systems that we can incorporate that regulate how power is used in your battery. So if you have a big battery system and you're not home and all of a sudden the power goes out, your air conditioning doesn't exhaust or deplete your entire battery supply.
Yeah.
So there are different things you can do. But granted, it's more likely that if the zombie apocalypse happened, as an example, and the power went out, the sun is still going to be shining.
Yeah.
And as long as the sun is shining and you've got a battery, your solar system will sustain you indefinitely because that battery becomes a place for that energy to be stored. And then once, the battery's full, hey, your system, the battery turns off, system continues to work with the solar, depletes your battery, then recharges it again, and the whole process starts all over again. But the idea is it's full autonomy and peace of mind more than anything. Because like I tell everybody, a battery's not going to save you money. It gives you peace of mind. Solar will save you money but the storage is there for peace of mind and independence.
Yeah, and I think of people like even just my parents, right? Keeping their medicines cold. If you're differently abled, maybe you have like an electric wheelchair, or some people have breathing machines that are battery powered. There's all kind. When you really start to think about it, you know, everyone's got a fridge and a freezer full of stuff, right? That's valuable. It seems like it's kind of a no-brainer nowadays to add it, and so that usually leads to, well, I can't afford it, right? And then so when I started getting into solar in 2006, that's what I first started hearing. And maybe they were a little bit right on that, but the price has gone down. The battery technology has gone up. The price has gone down. Sort of like microprocessors, right? They get twice as fast and half as cheap every year. I feel like solar has been ahead of the batteries. The batteries are catching up quick. But it seems like you guys, most likely, along with a lot of other companies, can finance, right? Whether it's a home equity line on my home, or if I go through your company, it seems like you could pretty much finance most of these products.
Yeah, yeah. And the impact, I mean, really, if you're financing, I mean, nobody wants to pay a loan for 20, 25 years. However, from a cash flow standpoint, it is an affordable option to making it possible to go solar and have battery storage without breaking the bank. And most solar loans nowadays, regardless of what company you go with, you know, they don't require any money down. And adding a battery is not going to increase your payment probably more than $50 or $70 a month just to have a basic battery. So it's not going to break the bank.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's that mindset. You know, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got this loan of, you know, 30,000 or whatever dollars, and get scared off. But the truth is, if people don't go solar, or if they don't get storage or whatever, you're going to spend 3 times on that over the course of your ownership of your home with the utility company. It's impossible not to.
Yeah,
So
their
of
prices keep
course,
going up. I tell
and
people
it's
we have some of the
impossible. You
highest.
know, as long as we keep growing, you know, if we keep growing as a city, that cost has to keep going up because they have to reinvest in, you know, infrastructure cost and keep up with
Yeah,
that demand.
yeah,
And there's a
absolutely.
great video. In fact, I alluded to it briefly, but if anybody has the chance, go to our website and click on our blog link. We put a video on there that's something that I discovered recently. It was sponsored by a foundation started by Microsoft. And, you know, the president of Microsoft created this foundation to help people become educated about climate change and innovation and how important it is that we innovate and move forward. But it cautions people to understand that, hey, innovation isn't going to just save us. It's not going to be the solution to the problem, because everybody wants to innovate. I mean, third world countries want to be as successful as we do, and all it's going to make happen is everyone's going to use more energy. And the cheapest way to, you know, take care of that is by building more power plants. And the cheapest way to do that is building gas or oil power plants and coal plants. So, you know, not, you know, the richer countries can innovate and innovate and innovate and get more efficient, but efficiency and innovation just means bigger demand.
Yeah,
And, you know, we have to think beyond that. And
yeah,
I think locally here in El Paso, you know, the strongest thing that we have going for us is abundant sunshine and the ability to spread that demand across the landscape by having everybody go solar. Because if
yeah.
everybody goes solar, El Paso Electric probably doesn't need to build more power plants because we're kind of spreading that across the landscape.
Yeah, yeah, I really love how solar can reduce peak demand, which is the argument why we need more power plants. And it's funny that you showed Newman 6, which is going to add more methane and natural gas pollution. Um, and right next to it were the solar farms, where there was an abundance of land, and they can even do it in ways now that integrates well with desert land, to where it could be up higher, which means more animals can graze. Even in
Yep.
San Antonio, when I lived there, they would use goats to cut the grass underneath all the solar farms, and
Mhm.
it saved them an ungodly amount of money, and it allowed nature to continue to live, right? And
Yep.
grass and flowers and the bees and everything, right? And so there's a way that, yes, I mean, we do have to, dig holes and put in poles and some concrete, but once it's left behind, it can be done in such a sustainable way compared to 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And,
You can
and it
build the
just seems like
infrastructure.
El Paso has an abundance of land, an abundance of sunlight, And you can Google solar is cheaper, is cheapest form of energy. And there are a lot of places across the world now where solar is just cheaper, and developers are coming in at a cost per kilowatt hour price of electricity that is just cheaper than natural gas without the pollution. And like you said, a lot of people have been getting on me recently about recycling solar panels, because there are some toxic products, but like you said, the warranty is 25 years, not the life of the solar panel.
Right.
Which, I mean, so when I tell people you buy solar, it's kind of like buying a house, right? You're probably going to have it forever, or you're going to sell the house at a much higher premium and get your money back that way. And so if you're not doing it for the environment, which I hope you are, if you think about it, the amount of your solar loan every month is probably going to be less than what your electric bill would be every month.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about going solar and financing it, you can usually finance it in a way, and if you put any money down, that your solar loan will still be cheaper than what your electric bill would have been, and it's solar. Right. And so I think, so if you're doing it just for financial reasons, I'll probably break even in about 6 years. I've got a 25-year warranty. I'm building my system like Lego blocks. And it recently financed my solar pool heating because I wanted to take advantage of it, because it wasn't there 15 years ago when I wanted it. Especially for more of a comfort feature versus actual electricity. So I just personally want everyone that's listening to know that it's very financially feasible. It's like a short-term 401k with no market manipulation based off sunlight, right? There's no emotion. There's no one company to jack stock prices up and down. Whereas your 401k, which a lot of people have, or some form of it, usually is all based off emotion roller coaster, right? And I like fixed guarantees, and I can pretty much bet on the sun most days. So
plus the important thing for a lot of people to remember is that it's not a 20 or 25 year proposition, like you said. If the system is going to last 40, 50 years or longer before you have to consider replacing those panels, you've got a lot of life out of it. And by then, even if you sell the house and let's say it's only producing half of what it started out at, 50 years ago, that's still energy that you don't have to pay for. Yeah. And if it's still working, why do you want to replace it? I hear that all the time. They're like, oh, it's probably not going to be worth much in 10 years. That's malarkey, because if you own it and that's power that you own, you're not having to pay for it. It's the only appliance that you can put on your house that is an income producing asset. It is producing something you don't have to spend money on. How is that not a positive? So even
absolutely.
Like people out there that sell houses with solar, no offense, my good neighbor Javier's on the line right now. He's a realtor, so he can identify with this. But when you sell a house that has solar on it, you're selling something that has a premium benefit to it, because it's something that new homeowner does not have to spend money on anymore. So how does that not have a value? And
I never
value,
see houses for sale that have solar on them, ever. They're sold. What I see is regular houses being sold. But when I worked with builders, they said that 100% of their solar homes always sold first. They were left with everything else that was solar ready, right? Which was good. At least they threw the conduit in there, right? But they just said, that's in Lennar Homes. That was our customer. And they said, yeah, we're going to start doing this mandatory in California because they're about to start making us, but we're going to get ahead of the curve. And I just think it always sells at a premium, and it sells first, and it sells fast.
Yeah. And a good colleague of mine, hit one of his customers when I was over at Solar City a long time ago, sold their house in a day.
Yeah.
And one of my existing customers sold it in a couple of days. And the main reason the people bought the house in the first place was because it had solar.
Yeah. Show them your electric bills when they buy the house. Here's what I pay every month.
But it comes from awareness. I mean, really. Yeah. But as I mentioned, today, it's more than just solar. It's more about producing that power and what you do with it. And here in El Paso and southern New Mexico, we have such a huge opportunity to make a difference, not only to our cities and our communities, but to the world and the country, because the power that we produce here, we could capacity-wise power a good chunk of the United States. just by putting solar on every single house here, or having the utility put more solar in, or private investors putting more solar in. But it doesn't stop there, because you got to store that energy to make it more effective. And if more homes have storage, someday the utility could use some of that energy to inject into the grid during those peak times. And
Absolutely. We
there
talked
was
about
a
that recently.
there was an apartment complex in Salt Lake City that I got to tour. That was a project between, it was done in conjunction with Orc Energy, which is a solar company out there, Rocky Mountain Energy, which was the utility, and Sonnen, the battery supplier. And what they did is they made these apartments self-sustaining. So each one of them had solar. They were all individually metered. Each one of them had a Sonnen battery in it. And all of them had charge point chargers underneath the covered parking.
Oh, wow.
So
That's awesome.
everybody had access to free energy. Two, the utility could use that excess power stored in the batteries for demand during those peak times. And then when people had electric cars, they just go plug it in, and now their solar is powering their car. Imagine if we could do things like that here in El Paso. We have.
Yeah, I think we can. With a new utility CEO, I'm hoping, especially because she's pro solar, and I think she even drives an electric vehicle, which I was happy to hear. And I've seen some of her forums, and I know they're pro solar utility scale, which is great, right? Because they got to make money, make profit, and that's fine. It's the American way, right? But what I don't like is when they put the $30 minimum bill on the El Paso side, in Texas at least, because it really just discourages solar. And not only are we subsidizing the utility by overproducing at 1 or 2 pennies, and they resell it for 12 cents, right? So if you ever overproduce at all, they're already profiting off of that. We're already cutting their peak demand, which means less power plants. But in the future, like you mentioned, every house could essentially be a battery, right? And your actual electric car could be being charged and could also backfeed to the grid even.
Yep.
So your charge, your electric vehicle, your home battery, and every home in the city could actually stabilize the grid. And if there were a power outage, they could maintain power, right? And so I think we got to think also down the road is, I'm hoping that the relationship with the utility here changes so they can see that value, because we are going to have high winds and 100 days a year of 100-degree weather soon. I think we're at like 50, 60, 70 days now, and it just keeps going up every year, which means more power, which means I feel like every house is a battery that can be valued more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I like how you guys integrate not just solar, right? Your solar, your batteries, your EVs. It's sort of lifestyle changes, right? Not just use energy better, but maybe cut your energy as well.
Correct, because it's not just producing the power; it's how you're using it. And it's like if somebody gave you a raise and now you've got all this excess money, it doesn't mean you go out and get a bigger mortgage, or, hey, I'm going to buy a car now that I can't afford, or whatever. It's budgeting that same amount of money. I mean, I'm sure you have heard this. I mean, I have, in the last 5 years, talked to so many people that before COVID, obviously, because now people are staying at home and they're using more power anyway, but before that, people would say, oh my gosh, I went solar, but my bill's still high. Well, lo and behold, just because they went solar, they thought, oh, I can start using more electricity, or I can leave the lights on, or I can run my air conditioner longer. No, you're producing that power just like you were getting it from the grid, except now you're using more. So you need more energy. That's why your bill is higher. But if you were to use the same amount of resources that you're producing, just like you did before, you won't feel that. But that's why we try to help people bring those costs down, monitor their consumption, use things like heat pump, heating and cooling systems for their home and for their pools, and use EV chargers properly and all that kind of stuff. It just helps them manage that lifestyle and have that sustainable energy lifestyle.
Sure.
Which is better for everybody.
Ask you a question.
Sure.
Hey, what is the incentives that the government are giving to homeowners with solar? In the past, there was some kind of incentive on the taxes or something. I'm not sure if they still on with that. And my concern or my question is, if you go solar and 20 years or 10 years later, when you finish your system, then what if, like computers, you know, a 20-year-old computer is like obsolete, can't do anything because now the gigabytes are so heavy that you cannot do anything with that. So my that's my question: how different, or how the companies um, try to update the systems every once in a while to not be obsolete, or and basically the as you know, Alan, you know, my consume is kind of very low. I maybe pay $60 on electric or so, but I'm thinking about solar, you know, but but I was thinking about what will be the outcome on the incentive, or something like that.
Well, first off, on the federal tax credit, that is still 26% this year. So you can actually qualify for up to 26% of your invested amount in your system. So like if your system costs 20,000, you get 26% of that as a tax credit.
Okay.
And then, but of course that is based on what you actually pay in taxes. So everybody's different. So definitely I encourage people to talk to their CPA. But as far as next year, that's going to go down to 22%. So the tax credit is reduced to 22% in 2021. And then in 2022, it goes away unless the current political environment and after the election changes such that maybe they extend the tax credit.
I think it's gonna happen if the story, if Biden gets to the presidency, it'll be a change in all those programs. Yeah. That's
well, they extended it in 2015 based
Yeah.
on the legislation at that time. So who knows? Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. But
and
regardless,
take advantage of it. But
yeah,
like you
take
said, it
advantage
does
of it.
expire, and let's not put all of our money bet on politicians. And so I say get it now while it's good, because it really could disappear in the long run. But I still don't think if it disappears, I don't think that that's going to be a detriment to the industry, because the cost of solar panels keeps going down. At the same time, the production that each panel produces keeps going up. Right? It's like computer chips, right? They get a little cheaper, a little smaller, and a little faster every year. And it's the same thing with solar panels. Batteries have caught on to that and are now at earlier stages of that, but catching up quicker. So I don't think that there's ever, you could almost always say for the rest of your life, there's always going to be a newer car, a newer computer, a newer solar panel, but we're going to give you a 25-year production estimate up front based off the 50-year weather pattern in your zip code, right, of area of the country. So, it's going to be 98% accurate, especially because solar companies a lot of times estimate, right? We'd rather you be happy than tell you it's going to produce a lot and it not. And so that's still not going to change. Yeah, there's a better solar panel, but you already know your value. We just showed you 25 years. But, yeah, you could spend money tomorrow, but you're also starting over tomorrow, your cost of, your return on investment. Right. So had I waited today, like I'm about to pay my system off, right, in the next year, right? Whereas if I started now, I would have been paying for dirty energy the whole time. And now I'm going to have another 5 to 7 years to pay my system off. So you can almost always say, what about tomorrow? I think you got to get it while the getting's good, get it while the incentives are here. Buy local only when you can from local companies. And no matter what your bill is, you can go solar. Right? You might need to spend a lot less money on a smaller system, but I think every house in town, even if you just want to add 4 or 5 panels and test it as a pilot, I put on 8 panels. I already knew I was doing this. It was financially driven, but I got to do my own little case study, and I put on 15 more. I'm about to add 15 more. And financially, it's 100% paid back in about 6-7 years.
Okay.
Now, regarding your question about, 10 years from now, systems or panels, yeah, they do advance in technology, but the system you put on your roof today will still be as good 10 years and 20 years from now. Yes, the panels lose efficiency over time, and it's only, believe it or not, only about 0.5% per year, which in 20 years, that's about 85 or 90% of what it produces today, which is not that bad. So that's why when we talk about the system still being pretty good 45 to 50 years from now, it's because you're still producing half of the amount that you started out as, but that's power that you don't have to pay for. So yeah, you could go out and get the latest and greatest and the best thing out there, but you don't have to. Like, Shelby was saying, you could just add to your system to make it more efficient or to get more power out of it. You don't have to take all those panels off and get a brand new system. You've got the infrastructure in place. It's just fine tuning things here and there. And yes, the technology is going to always get better, but it doesn't mean you have to spend the money getting the latest and greatest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's just, I was wondering, probably do updates in a few years or so. The fact that, one of the things that I like what you're saying is the battery. So, because that's what probably helps in a case of, you never know what's going to happen.
And houses sell really well when they have a battery on them.
Yes,
We're
they
in a
do.
crazy world. We're in a crazy world, so anything can happen. Someone can come by anytime. And
But you're a neighbor, so if the power ever goes out, I know who's going to come over and plug his phone in.
I know that I can just give an extension to your home, but I would like to have my own for now.
Yeah, and it's also cool. I mean, I see me. I went solar for a lot of reasons, but I also did it as a form of protest. I mean, you think about how dependent we are in foreign countries, and let's not fool ourselves. We're at war over energy a lot, right? And anything I can do to reduce my impact, both locally, globally, while saving money, I get to pat myself on the back, and I just get the peace of mind, right? Yeah, I just think going solar nowadays, I used to have to convince people that it actually worked. And now I think it's all about, oh, let me know the financing options. And it's getting a lot easier to go solar. And now that these companies like Solar Smart Living are here and others in town, the fact that it's all built in, right? You have your installer, they provide you warranties. Most likely they'll help you facilitate the product warranty. They'll help you if there's an issue. You got some crazy squirrels that bite a line, they'll help you. And like we were talking about earlier, you can slowly do this over time, right? Maybe you put in 5 panels this year. Next year, you upgrade your appliances so they're more efficient. Maybe the year after that, you add a few more panels. The next year, you add better windows, right? So people in El Paso don't have to go out and spend money today. You can start no money down with financing, and it could start with your light bulbs and windows, and then you start adding solar and electric vehicles to it. So I just want people to know you have a lot of options, and Alan's told us a lot about those. So don't feel like you have to do everything at once. And don't think you have to have the hard cash in your hand to do it. As long as you have good credit, usually, that's all you need. And like I said, a lot of times your loan is less than what your electric bill would have been, which means you're profitable every single day. The very first day you take that loan on, you're still profitable. Even if it's $5 to $10 profitable, you're still profitable on day one, which is key.
And a lot of us understand too that most of us, if we look at cell phones as an example, how much do we spend on our cell phones now? I mean, cell phones now are probably, in fact, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. On average, $1,000 for a cell phone.
It's because you like iPhone. My phone is like $200, and
yeah. But granted, 20 years ago, yeah, you might have a BlackBerry or a little brick phone or whatever that was $25. But look at the difference in the technology. I mean, the phones we have today are literally computers. They're not just cell phones. I mean, it does everything. Takes your pictures, takes video, takes. We work our offices off our phones. Well, solar is a lot like that too. The technology might advance, but it's not going to get cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's stable, but the reality is, as panels advance, and let's say they produce more and more power, that cost per watt actually goes up, because of supply and demand and the technology. And even though the trend is that solar is getting cheaper, the actual cost of those systems and the installation is going up. So that's why I tell people, don't wait. Don't wait till the latest and greatest comes out 5 years from now, because I guarantee you it's not going to be much different than it was 5 years ago. Not really.
Yeah. And if you have $100 loan or $100 electric bill, would you rather give it to the utility owned by JP Morgan that takes the profit, extracts it out of our community, which harms us, and they send it to New York City? Or would you rather, help keep Solar Smart Living hiring people and,
Or you
reduce the
can,
amount of power plants that we have and help your community and your kids and your neighbors' kids, right? I mean, it's sort of I feel like the trickle down effect is so big, right? And if you're going to have an electric bill, which most people do, why give it to El Paso Electric? Like I said, when you can just give it to a local solar company, and at some point you break even and start profiting on it. And that can never, ever happen if you're connected to the grid, to the utility for the rest of your life.
and
So
you're
at
really
some
putting,
point,
you're
you
putting that,
gotta be independent.
and you're putting that money really back into your house. You're not,
Exactly.
It's a reinvestment. It's not
Exactly.
something
Most likely the interest rates are kind of low right now, so it also could be an advantage.
You can roll it into your mortgage. So if you're buying a home, selling homes, I highly recommend that you tell your customers to roll solar into the loan, because the added monthly bill to their mortgage is so nominal, but the savings on their energy, it's usually 3 or 4 times what that added mortgage would be by adding in another 10, 20, $30,000 in solar. So I highly recommend, if any real estate agents are on, like yourself or others, that if your customers are thinking of buying a house and they want to go solar, tell them to do it now because of the tax credit, but also because it's when they're going to get their loan. And it's so much easier when, like I said, you can add a 10, 20, $30,000 system for no money down. And when it comes to a 30-year mortgage, you're added $10, $20 a month compared to $50 to $100 in savings. I mean, you're instantly making profit off that loan. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that part has to be with the appraiser and with the appraiser on the homes. It's kind of difficult to put in a house $20,000 or $30,000 on the top of the price because of the solar. And when you sell, most likely what we have to do is making sure that the new owner either pay for the solar or either take over the loan. It's not difficult to do it with the solar. At the first, I mean, probably the first couple of years, it was very hard. People doesn't know.
10 years ago,
people go
definitely.
to the closing table, and then, by the way, you have a $20,000 loan. What? And now it's kind of different. It's like more easy.
Yeah,
And
most loans go with the house, and if you do it through a home equity line, it's usually even cheaper interest rates. But I've helped a lot of homeowners get their first time home, and the solar was rolled into the total loan. So it's just your same mortgage, but instead of 150, it was 180. But the nice thing is these customers were saving every month more than the mortgage, that added mortgage. And so for them, it was just financially profitable on day one. So that's, I just say that because a lot of people get mortgages. So if you can roll it in, I think it's better to keep your cash in your pocket.
Okay. All right. I have to go to my next meeting. But thank you for the invitation, Alan. And
thanks for coming.
So
thank you. Yeah.
We'll talk and see what can be a good plan for my house. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? Any other questions?
All right. Well, that'll conclude our speaker for today. Alan Morgan, thank you so much. Thank you, Solar Smart Living. Thank you for sponsoring this event for these 2 weeks.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
ecoElPaso does.
Absolutely. And again, we are ecoElPaso. My name is Shelby Ruff. I'm the president of the board of directors. And again, we are an all volunteer nonprofit. If anyone wants to donate $5, $10, $20, we always appreciate donations. But again, we hope to have another 3 to 4 speakers this week. And we'll post this on YouTube, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.